Oh, yeah. Welcome back to Kill Rock Radio here on killrockradio.com. My name is Rocky, back up in this motherfucker. Gonna go as long as I can fucking go. That could be 10 minutes, it could be a fucking hour. We don't know. On this episode of Kill Rock Radio, Wolfgang Van Halen calls out bands who use backing tracks. And we'll get into that a little bit. And then speaking of Wolfgang Van Halen, that leads us to a topic that was sent to us via the email info@killrockradio.com, where I was asked, what are the greatest Nepo-Babies in rock history? So I'm going to attempt to put that together. It is slim fucking pickings, I'll tell you that much. So anyways, let's go ahead and get it going. Hope everybody's weeks, months, whatever the fuck are going really well. Dude, I just got out of this show. It was, 3 days ago? I went to go see a band. Well, really, okay. I was going to see a band called Drug Church, who, if you are a fan of the show, you know that we included them on our list of the best shit that I heard in 2022. So based on the strength of that album, I absolutely wanted to go see Drug Church. And they were opening for a band called Drain, who I'd never heard of. However, I looked at the picture and I said, fuck, this looks like three normal-ass gentlemen. You go and you actually see the music, you say, fuck, this is really hardcore for guys wearing like fucking Burlington Coat Factory clothes. And wow, that crowd. And dude, this room they were playing in, they had fans going, AC going. It did not fucking matter. First off, it's brutally hot down here in Houston, Texas right now. It is like you may fucking die hot out here right now. And so between that and the people constantly in and out and just sweating fucking buckets, this crowd was just intense circles, intense moshing, intense crowd surfing. Multiple times the crowd like overtook the stage and like took the mic and started singing songs for different bands and shit. Great show. Super involved, but god damn, man. It was pretty fucking wild. I had a lady with me and she was like, dude, I almost passed the fuck out. I almost lost my shit up there in the Drain show. She pretty much had to spend the whole last part sitting outside. That's the fucking thing. It's over 100 degrees every motherfucking day here now. And she went outside to cool off. That's how fucked up it was inside the venue. But it was nothing that could be helped. If you went by the bar, you could feel the AC blowing. It was pointless because those fucking people were losing their shit. And god dog, I loved it. These shows I've been seeing, like the younger the crowd, holy shit, these kids are fucking bad. In my generation, we were very sort of sarcastic and like you don't want to show that you're into anything or that you like anything because that's, you know, like that would be considered lame and shitty. Like, oh, you like stuff, you fucking loser. And that's how like 90s kids were. And, you know, you're kind of like raised to be glib and like not trust shit. And to see these kids who are just fucking living and dying, every fucking band. And dude, other than Drug Church, I hadn't heard any of these motherfuckers. But every band, the kids were singing along with every fucking word. They were just living and dying with them, man. What a great show. Drain, Drug Church, let me see if I can remember the name of the bands. Gel, Magnitudes. I think those were the only ones I saw. I missed one band, so I apologize for forgetting. But god dog, what a show. Anyways, let's go ahead and get on with the show. info@killrockradio.com. My boy Hugh Morris. Hey man, love your channel. I just had a question and maybe you could use this in the show. I've been hearing lots about these Nepo-Babies. Do you think there are any great Nepo-Babies in rock music? So I got to looking into that a little bit, and I gotta tell you, it's fucking slim pickings out there. these fucking Nepo babies apparently don't know how to rock. You have there's a lot of like one-hit wonders and shit. Like I remember back in the day, they had Nelson, who's these two blonde kids. They look like fucking Stepford Wives, the metal Stepford Wives. Julian Lennon had a big hit song, and everybody was like, oh shit, here comes John Lennon's kid. I think Julian Lennon was even on the front page of the Rolling Stone magazine back when that fucking meant something. And I mean, really, it went nowhere from there. You look at the list of Nepo babies in the world of music, it is littered with total fucking bullshit. And really, that sort of spotlights the issue with Nepo babies. That a lot of times, these people are given opportunities that really regular people wouldn't get. Because, of course, you don't have those connections. And, of course, it gives you a leg up. I've never blamed someone for wanting to take part in their family business, essentially. If you grow up, your dad's a big rock star, wouldn't you not look up to that motherfucker and hold him up as your hero and not want to do that yourself? So I certainly don't question that. That being said, you know, there's a huge wave of Nepo babies coming up right now. You hear a lot about Robert Trujillo's kid. I don't know the kid's name off the top of my head, but he's already toured with Korn. He's a little fucking kid. James Hetfield's kids have a band. I've seen Slipknot's kids. They have a band called Vended. I've seen them. They're pretty fucking good. And when you listen to them, it's clear that those kids grew up side stage. So who's to say what this next generation of Nepo babies will do? We haven't really seen them yet. If you look at the long littered history of Nepo babies in rock, it's not looking good, we'll say. So with this, I wanted to not necessarily be negative, but be positive. Maybe I'll do the top 5 shittiest. But goddamn, that would be a really hard list to actually pick. This one was easy. I am doing the top 5 Nepo babies in all of rock music. So like I said, it's slim pickings. So when I say rock music, I'm kind of grading on a curve here. So let's get down to it. So we're going to start off with a guy who had a lot of success in the mid-90s. This guy was a staple on VH1. It's Jakob Dylan of the Wallflowers. When you first saw Jakob Dylan back in the mid-90s, handsome young man, he could clearly sing very well. He was a songwriter. But on top of all that, he was also the son of one of the most important and influential folk/rock musicians, maybe of all time, in Bob Dylan. John is in the basement mixing up the medicine. I'm on the pavement. You know, Bob Dylan was so influential that he influenced people that were like his contemporaries. The Beatles were influenced by Bob Dylan, and they were older than him. So, that's how fucking influential this dude was. Debuting with such big shoes to fill, it has to be very daunting. Anytime you would ever see the video on MTV or fucking VH1, if there was a VJ, they were going to mention that Jakob Dylan was the son of Bob Dylan. There was no way to escape it. So it was certainly part of the marketing push around the Wallflowers. That being said, once again, when you're Bob Dylan's kid, there's a lot of expectations put on you to be some sort of revelation, which is really unfair. That being said, those guys went to number 4, the Wallflowers, that is, with their album Bringing Down the Horse. There are a couple hit songs off of there. It's a platinum album. They went to number 4 on the Billboard charts when that actually was like a really, really hard thing to do. To even get in the top 10 was a big fucking deal in the 90s. This is, of course, before file sharing and all that shit. The only real pirating was like when you would fucking buy the tape and let your homie fucking dub it or whatever. Even as recently as 2010, I believe, he put out an album called Women in Country or some shit like that. And it was number 2 on the rock charts. So, I mean, the guy still has, that name still does carry some weight. People do respect Jakob Dylan. That's why he has made this illustrious list. Moving on. Next, we have an artist that I'm actually a big fan myself, and that's Sean Lennon. Watching the shadows I always felt Sean Lennon was overly maligned and overly hated on for shit that was absolutely out of his control. It seems like, everybody rooted for Julian Lennon and everybody like fucking wanted to see Sean fail because Julian Lennon was the forgotten son. Julian Lennon was the son of the first wife, and Sean was the son of the evil Yoko Ono, that shrew who broke up the Beatles apparently, and there was a lot of negativity cast upon him simply because of who his mother was, and then of course, just like with Jakob Dylan, the pressure of being John fucking Lennon's kid, and on top of it, he looks and sounds so much like John Lennon. I mean, I understand that's his son, of course. Sean Lennon got his start with a band called Chibo Mato, which was an Asian band that like they would do songs about like food and shit. And it was very, in a time before memes, it was kind of meme-y. But I remember they were really cool. They played like a lot of jazzy stuff and all that stuff. And Sean, I guess he was boyfriend to one of the girls in the band, and they end up bringing him on as the bassist. So he tours with Chibo Mato. He tours with his mom's band, the Plastic Ono Band. And when he released his debut album, Into the Sun, I thought that was a really solid effort. I was a big fan of that album. It was on Grand Royal, which was the Beastie Boys' custom label. But with every Nepo baby, it doesn't matter who they are. Their own perspective will prevent them from ever really seeing the truth as to how much easier it's been for them. It seems like every Nepo baby, and Sean here is no different. You don't want to believe that this is all happening just because you have hookups. It's not just happening because of who your parents are and shit like that. You want to believe that it's your art that is thriving on this scene, No matter what, you can't get away from that reality. That will follow you. You will never fully overcome that. And here's a quote from Sean when he did end up getting signed to Grand Royal Records. He says, "I think I found the only label on the planet who doesn't care who my parents are and what my name is. It's a good feeling to know that I wouldn't have gotten the offer if they wouldn't have liked my songs. That's pretty rare in the musical business." I'm not going to sit here and say, dude, your name doesn't have nothing to do with it. The fact that you sound a lot like your dad doesn't have nothing to do with it. And, the Beastie Boys are openly big Beatles fans, so even on some subconscious level, there has to be something going on there. When he was doing his first big push for that Grand Royal debut, he had to go on like the Howard Stern show, for example. And, he comes in and of course he wants to make a point to say, listen, man, this is about my music. I understand my dad. Everybody loves my dad. I am not my dad. But you end up sometimes pushing that point too hard that people grow to resent you because it's like, well, listen, dickhead, wham, my dad is so famous and all that shit. And so he would go on shows like the Howard Stern show and just totally act like, oh no, that's not a thing. And that pisses people off because of course it's a thing. I always liked Sean when he embraces that shit. There's nothing wrong with who your mom and dad are. It's not something you can change. Everybody fucking knows it. When you embrace it and you say, listen, this is who the fuck I am. To me, that's when he's been the greatest. Now he plays with Les Claypool and the Flying Frog Brigade or some shit like that. And the bits I've heard, I mean, of course, Les Claypool, it's going to be very sort of progressive and wild. And Sean holds his own. He is a thriving part of that band. Sean has done movie scores that are award-winning. Sean has had a really successful career in music. In today's world, we put everything on this grandiose scale, and either you're the most famous motherfucker ever or you're irrelevant. You're nothing, And there really is something to be said for going out there. You put your albums out, you have a fucking niche audience, you score films, you work on this, you work on that, and you're putting your best foot forward in every scenario, and you make money, and you live your life, and shit like that. Of course, a guy like Sean Lennon, detractors will say, well, he can pick and choose his projects because he could never work again and be fine, just based on the generational wealth that his father accrued over the years. And that's true. But once again, can he be blamed for his scenario? If you just simply set aside the man's body of work, you look at that, you say, that's a nice career. And in a land of Nepo-Babies who cannot fucking hang, I say, Sean Lennon, you can hang, dog. That's what gets you on the list. Next, we have a guy who, his career was cut tragically short. But with the one album he created, he left such an indelible mark that you can't question the guy's greatness. He was absolutely going to be great, and was great. But it's a really sad story, and that's Jeff Buckley. Jeff Buckley released one album. It was called Grace, and it's considered one of the greatest albums of all time. Rolling Stone made it, I think it was number 304 on the list of 500 greatest albums of all time. Jeff was recording a second album at the time of his death. What had happened was he was down there he was in Tennessee, I believe, might have been Nashville. They were going to record an album, and while he was waiting for his band to show up, he said, fuck it, I'm going to go take a swim in the Mississippi River. He got caught up in a boat wake, pulled him under, he drowned. Jeff's father, Tim Buckley, he released a good amount of albums as a folk singer. He was like a experimental psychedelic guy. He went through several phases in his time before dying of a heroin overdose at 28. So Jeff, it's almost questionable how much of a Nepo baby the guy was, because he said he only met his father a couple times even in his life. His mom was a classically trained musician. So the guy had a tremendous pedigree, a tremendous genetics, I guess you could say. If you know anyone who loves this album, there's nobody who's like tepid on it. Like, I guess Jeff Buckley, Grace, I guess it's fine. No, the people who love that album, it is like the shit. It is the holy grail. And to do that in one album, to make that sort of impact in one album, you can't question the greatness there. That's what gets him so high up on this list. Jeff Buckley, gone too soon. One of the baddest ass Nepo babies of all time. Next on the list, we got my guy Wolfgang Van Halen. Wolfgang Van Halen is somebody whose story is still being written. The guy is still relatively early on in his career. Everybody knows Wolfgang. He's the son of, I think, a 70s, 80s sitcom star, Valerie Bertinelli, and one of the absolutely greatest musicians, greatest guitarists, greatest composers of all motherfucking times, Edward Van Halen. When you talk about guys who cast huge shadows, Eddie was an all-time great. Everybody knew Eddie, even whether you knew metal, whether you knew guitar playing, whether you knew any of that shit or not. Everybody knew who Eddie Van Halen is, because Eddie was the baddest motherfucker around, and everyone had to acknowledge him. Wolfgang, he had the very best training throughout his entire life. And of course, once again, people will hold that against him. That's not his fucking fault. Your dad is your fucking hero. Say, Daddy, I want to play like you. Of course, Daddy wants you to play like him. It's getting him a fucking tear in his eye, the whole fucking deal. He gets you the very best. He's one of the very best. You're learning from him. No one could learn from somebody better than Eddie Van Halen. So, of course, Wolfgang Van Halen is a fucking virtuoso level musician on several instruments. The guy, his chops are unquestioned, a tremendously talented musician. And on top of that, he has paid his dues. He's put in the fucking work. The first time a lot of people heard of Wolfgang is when he replaced beloved Van Halen bassist Michael Anthony. I cannot state this enough. Everybody loves Michael Anthony. The guy looks like fucking Fozzie Bear. He's so sweet and cute. I just want to hug him and squeeze him right the fuck right now. His little dimples, squeeze little dimples, and give him a little fucking kiss on the face. Everybody loved Michael Anthony. He did the background vocals. He was a really important part of the band, and they shit-canned and replaced him with this kid. That's a very Nepo baby move. It's clear the Van Halen brothers, if they could have made enough talented children, they would have stacked that entire band with Van Halens, and you just keep making Van Halens to put in the places as motherfuckers die off. They could have gone forever. They just didn't quite make enough babies to make it happen. But, Wolfgang came in. He played with the band. I mean, it was over 10 years. Could have been around, 15 years? I don't fucking know. He was with them for a long time as the touring bassist. I believe they made one album with him. So, he's been touring, he's been playing huge places, he's been in the studio, he's done all these fucking things. He was bassist for Tremonti, which is basically the remains of Creed. He played with them for a while. So, this is high level experience. So then he goes out on his own. His first album, Mammoth WVH, was #1 on all the fucking rock charts. I believe it was like 12 on Billboard overall. He has another album that's just getting ready to come out. There's been they have relative hit songs. Like, as much as a rock song can be a hit these fucking days, the impact that he's already made puts him on this list. He could end up the baddest ass Nepo baby of all time, but he is not quite there yet. He doesn't have the resume. He doesn't have the longevity of this man. He is the #1 Nepo baby of all time. He is Lenny Kravitz. This could be a cop-out because Lenny, I guess he's not specifically a Nepo baby. Nepo baby, everybody is using this term, and I'm sure half of you are doing it incorrectly, and I'm learning from y'all. So let me know if I'm right. Nepo baby, you have to be like directly in your parents' business. For example, Lily Rose Depp, Johnny Depp's kid, she is also an actor just like him. Not just like him. But Lenny Kravitz, though his parents weren't directly in the music business, they were both in the entertainment business. And I know for a fact that had something to do with Lenny Kravitz becoming a famous person, because I had seen Lenny Kravitz and I had heard of Lenny Kravitz and all that shit for a long ass time before I had ever heard Lenny Kravitz's music. Unquestionably talented as a guitarist, as a music writer, as a songwriter, all that shit. I'm not taking any of that away from the guy. He's devastatingly handsome, and that's how I heard of him initially. Because he was fucking Lisa Bonet. You would know her now. She's an actress. She was on The Cosby Show. She had her own show that spun off from that called A Different World. Most recently, you would know her as the ex-wife of Jason Momoa. But Lenny Kravitz got Lisa Bonet like right when she was at her height, when she was on The Cosby Show. And he was in all the tabloids. I would see this guy every fucking where. Just really the fact that like, oh, she's fucking Lenny Kravitz. He's trying to be a musician, but it ain't going nowhere. And, shit like that. He was portrayed as like a loser hanger-on that was trying to fuck his way up in the industry. I've heard people say, well, you know what? He happened to meet Lisa Bonet and they fell in love. He's a very handsome guy, all that shit. Listen. If your parents are not famous and you don't live in the same places and hang in the same circles, you can't just say, oh man, Lisa Bonet, I see her on TV. I think I'd like to fuck her. And you ask a friend, oh yeah, I know her. Dude, I'll hook you up. He gets hooked up. Boom, he's with Lisa Bonet. And then eventually Lisa Bonet leaves him because he wrote a song for Madonna, an actually very popular song. It was called Justify My Love. And like the video got banned. Like it was considered one of the most scandalous fucking things at the time. And Lenny Kravitz wrote that song. And supposedly in the process of writing in that song, allegedly started fucking Madonna too. So, and this was Madonna at the very height of her powers, ladies and gentlemen. Lisa Bonet finds out. She's like, dude, fuck off. He writes a bunch of songs about Lisa Bonet. Everybody sees the guy in the fucking tabloids, And now he's writing songs about it. Like that's like shit that would happen today. You know, that's like some Taylor Swift shit where you fuck a famous person, you break up with them, and you write songs that are clearly about them, and everyone who's into all the drama latches on, you know? And that's what happened with Lenny Kravitz. The first big hit song, people would say, oh, Let Love Rule. Fuck off. Let Love Rule was not a hit initially. Those were hits retroactively. The first time I ever saw Lenny Kravitz on MTV was for the song It Ain't Over Till It's Over. A song that was in the process of him being left by Lisa Bonet. It was clearly about the drama. Everybody latched onto it. You listen to it, it's one of Lenny's weakest fucking songs, but people caught on to the drama. It was a brilliant PR move on his part, leveraging his sex life into a hit song. And, you know, whatever you want to say about that, once again, Lenny's talent kind of, it rationalizes it. It like, you know, it is kind of like shrewd LA bullshit. But the big breakthrough for Lenny, to me, what elevated him and completely smashed that old image that he was kind of just, you know, oh, the music, yeah, and he's just trying to fuck his way around town. What shattered that and what made people really take Lenny seriously as a musician was Are You Gonna Go My Way? That was one of the baddest ass fucking songs. You watch that video, like that's pure fucking rock star shit right there. Are You Gonna Go My Way? Just a gigantic hit song. Everybody fucking loved it. Everybody fucking forgot all the old fucking Lisa Bonet, Madonna, Lenny's dick stuff. And you were able to really see him for who he was. And then from there on in, I believe he has like 5 platinum records. The guy's still making music to this day. The dude, he's out on stage with a cock ring on. The guy wears a cock ring 24/7. Did you, he was playing a show one time. He did like a squat. His leather pants ripped and revealed that he had a cock ring on around, but like not even just a regular cock ring. He had the fucking special deal that was around his dick and balls. I'm assuming he was doing it to fucking, to lift his dick and balls. Cause obviously that gets around the base, of your dick and balls and kind of puts them on a little pedestal in a way. And, that's what makes for a really nice dick and ball bulge. So he's showing young gigolos the way to the future. He fathered the gorgeous Zoe Kravitz. We wouldn't have her getting just randomly stuffed into Batman for no fucking reason and playing no real part in the story. But that's another Nepo-Baby story for another Nepo-Baby genre of entertainment. Lenny himself, as I said, hugely successful career. He's a rock and roll Hall of Famer, absolutely. When the time comes, you know they're going to put that motherfucker in. But would probably have not gotten all the same opportunities if he was just like Lenny from Wyoming. As I've said before, if you look at the landscape of Nepo-Baby musicians, I mean, it is just a fucking dystopian horrorscape of complete delusion and awful, awful attempts at creating. These Nepo-Babies deserve it. Even they took their leg up, but they actually put their very best foot forward and they overcame, and we're all better off for it. So thank you, Nepo-Babies. Keep trying, I guess. Anyways, so next, speaking of Nepo-Babies, our number 2 Nepo-Baby made a little bit of news. In a story from the email info@killrockradio.com, that's where you send any shit you would like me to talk about. Wolfgang Van Halen blasts bands who rely heavily on backing tracks. Quote, "You should be able to play your shit." Wolfgang Van Halen, as we referenced, the son of Eddie Van Halen, plays every instrument there is and plays them well. He can produce, he can do any fucking thing. He had come on a YouTube show called Coffee with Ola, which is hosted by Ola Englund, who is a Swedish guitarist, record producer, and owner of Solar Guitars. So he was talking to Wolfgang, and they got to talking about the tracks thing. And Wolfgang had like a legit fucking take on it. He came out and straight up said that it is bullshit if you're coming out there and you can't play your own fucking music.
Look, I think there's a line. I think everybody else draws their own line with what tracks are acceptable or not. But it's like, if you're pumping in the main guitar riff and the lead vocals and actual fucking drums, like pre-recorded drums, like that's a problem.
That is
like,
a problem.
You should be able to play your shit.
What is live if it's
exactly. Like, I can understand you don't have a keyboard player, so we need the pad. You know, that's fine. Lead vocal, main guitar, main bass, and the drums. You should be playing that.
We talked about this a little bit in the past, and it's something that as a kid of the 90s, I've been lucky enough to see a lot of all-time great bands, and it's only just recently happened where you start to see people playing entire shows to track. For example, Pantera. Anytime I would see Pantera, if you're going to do, let's say, for example, Cowboys from Hell, everybody knows the thing. It starts up with the little and then that goes into the main riff. They would play that first part as a track so Dimebag could come in and then the whole band starts. That's a good use of a track. But there are so many people who at this point can't fucking hack it anymore, and they're leaning too hard on it to the point that they're complete bullshit and they must be called out. The fact that everybody acts like it's cool is maddening to me, because my 90s sensibilities make me say, fuck this counterfeit bullshit. If you can't play your shit anymore, you gotta retire, dog. It's fine. No one is forever. No one can conquer time. You're falling apart. They say from like your early 20s on, you are actively dying, rotting, turning to shit. It happens to the best of us. In recent episodes, we've talked about Kiss. Ace Frehley, the original guitarist of Kiss, he accused Paul Stanley of singing to track, and it was essentially acknowledged because, nowadays with bullshit language, we can cover anything. And now I believe it's called enhanced vocals, which means they pump in good vocals, and your actual live singer who can no longer produce good vocals, if you're lucky, they'll sing over those vocals with like the volume turned just a little bit up so you can hear them some, and they can also do crowd banter and make it seem like it's live. Some people at this point flat out fucking lip sync. Motley Crue is a good example of that. Some would say Nikki Sixx could never fucking play bass worth a shit, but they're saying even Tommy Lee's bullshitting his drums now. That's alleged, of course. We know Vince Neil is bullshitting because they've acknowledged that he's involved in enhanced vocals. Everyone knows Vince Neil's been a piece of shit from day one. Even in prime Vince Neil couldn't sing worth a fuck live. So if you can't sing, your drummer can't play his drum parts, your guitarist, Mick Mars said he was one of the only ones who actually played live, and he had fucking like degenerative diseases and shit. He had the dignity to go out there and try to play live. And then these guys who weren't even playing their fucking instruments had the balls to say, hey man, you're forgetting your fucking parts. Well, you don't even play your fucking parts. And that's essentially what got Mick Mars thrown the fuck out of Motley Crue. And that's why John 5 is there now. John 5 can play his parts, so I'm sure he does that live. Once again, the guitar may be the only position of Motley Crue that's not being played via tracks. And Wolfgang would have you believe that there's a lot of motherfuckers playing to track, and he makes a great fucking point. Everybody has seen scenarios where you go to a backing track that's playing effects and shit like that. Like, I remember recently I saw Code Orange, and I give these guys so much fucking props because they have a lot of very electronic shit in their music that you hear and you say, man, there's no way they can recreate that live. And you go there and they do have the sounds on a fucking pad and shit, but they hit everything right on time. And those fucking sound drops, there's even an art to like dropping that shit on time. And it all can work together and still be very impressive. And the people that you see doing this are the older bands who can't fucking hack it anymore. And they're charging such exorbitant prices. Think of the arrogance here. when we're talking about essentially saying, I'm going to charge you out the ass for the right to just be in a fucking room with me, to see me pretend to sing songs that I can no longer sing any fucking more. You're paying for the right to see a living version of me. And you could say one day, oh, I saw that motherfucker. To me, it's cheap as fuck that you would charge. If you're going to do shit like that, you should charge less. I wouldn't feel bad about paying very little money to go see the actual Motley Crue go out there and pretend to do their songs. I've gone recently to see a Motley Crue tribute band. It was fun. So, I'm not against that. To see the real Motley Crue out there doing that shit. You got Tommy Lee there. He's strapped that giant juicy dong into some fucking fruit smugglers. And he's sitting there and his fucking drum kit goes, it's in a circle and it's flipping and all that shit. I love the vibe of Motley Crue. And there are several songs that I really, really love that those motherfuckers make, but they haven't been even half-ass decent live in a long time. At this point, they are actively ripping off their fans. To me, it's sleazy. It's gross. And for some reason, you're a big asshole hater if you bring it up. So bottom line, Wolfgang Van Halen is absolutely right. If you can't play your shit, then either you don't have the chops in the first fucking place and you need to make something more basic. It's fine, man. Go look at the fucking Ramones. Go look at the Sex Pistols. Early punk music is so simple, but it's about the artistry that you put into it, the guts, the cock and balls, whatever you want to call it. And that's where the fucking magic comes from. It doesn't come from how well you play your instruments and all that shit. And if you have classic songs and you can't play them anymore, it's a damn shame, but it might be time to, ride off into the sunset, don't you think? Anyways, moving on. We're going to get to your comments here. info@KillRockRadio is where you would send your comments. And otherwise, you could get up in our DMs anywhere you go, pretty much. And it would be / or @KillRockRadio. I got some feedback on the thing last episode about Phil Anselmo disavowing the Confederate flag. I have 2 comments here. One from my boy Taboo Kid, who said it was a white power flag, by the way. And then my boy Greg, who says, where the hell was a Confederate flag mentioned besides you saying it was? What's clearly marketing is you acting like that's what he was talking about. I will say to Greg, how the fuck do you know what he was talking about? If it was some sort of white power flag, I don't know. I would say, how does Phil look out and see a white power flag and even know what the fuck it is? I couldn't tell you about any white power flag other than the KKK flags or something. Like I've seen Nazi flags. What else is a white power flag? I don't know. But original reports at the time we did the show were that it was a Confederate flag. It is what it is. Either way, I know Phil referred to a flag and he referred to politics. So I don't know, but I don't think either, homeboy. Taboo Kid was at least reasonable. Come on, Greg, let's be friends. My boy Bloody Scotsman says, oh, Phil, don't tell me you have your pronouns tatted on your lower back, too. That sick burn. Insinuating that Phil is some sort of feminine man now. Does Phil have a tramp stamp? Something on the tramp stamp area? I know he's heavily tatted. That would be a funny tattoo. He, him, they, them. Put all those fucking pronouns all across your ass. My homie Psycho Girl Magnet says spineless douche, backing down from his true feelings. That's the thing, man. I've heard Phil more often than not say that shit was not really his deal. Not going so far as to disavow it necessarily, but just saying it's not a thing about white power or supremacy or anything about that. like, rebel spirit and all that good shit. And you've never really seen Phil use it very much outside of Pantera. If it followed him everywhere he went, then I'd say, okay, obviously the guy has some sort of fixation on that rebel flag. But really, the rebel flag stayed with Pantera and went with, Vinny and Dime. They were using it on their fucking Pantera cosplay band, and they were using it originally for Hell Yeah. Next, Lynchpin says, maybe next we'll hear Phil backs BLM now. He disavows the Confederate flag at the same time, sells merch with it plastered all over. How convenient. On that level, I do agree. It is disingenuous to fucking say, I'm not into that, but here, buy my shirts. We got shirts in the back with. And for the final word, my homie, One More Natural Disaster says, as a black man from the South, I have always liked Pantera and the Duke Boys and have never thought twice about the Confederate flag. It wasn't until a few years ago when it seemed to become a thing. If you have one, then you are openly racist. I don't think it's true in every case, but if they have the flag nowadays, then you will look like a racist regardless. I think you cannot care what other people think and still not be a racist. That's what I felt, that it was just like, it was more a Southern thing than a racial thing. The flag, I understand to somebody from the North to say that it was never really demonized to me. Maybe that's even a statement on the South. I don't know. I can't comment on that. I just know the way I was raised, and I never viewed it in an evil light until you start to see how it affects people. And at that point, it's like, well, I don't even give a fuck about it. To me, it was just like some shit that was on a toy or whatever. It didn't have any real meaning to me. So yeah, drop it. Who gives a fuck, And I think that's the way a lot of Southern kids were. And there's always going to be people that are deathly afraid of change, and they want shit to be the same from generation to generation to generation. My daddy with that flag, and fucking then his daddy, and daddy, and all the way down the fucking line. That's not the way it's supposed to be. From the first cavemen that decided it was time to move from one spot to another, when it comes to human beings, shit is always changing. If you are not changing, you are falling behind, motherfucker. And thank you all very much, the Kill Rock Radio audience. Come on back next time. We will keep this conversation going, and I will talk to you crazy motherfuckers later. Peace.
Got any questions or comments? Send them to info@killrockradio.com. To keep up with the latest and catch up on past interviews and clips, search Kill Rock Radio on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to Kill Rock Radio wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm like, oh my God, just listen to it already. Wherever you listen to podcasts.